funky hair. I need a haircut. Nice. Hello mates, Vine here. Have you ever been to a mobile phone store, looked at an Android smartphone and went, man, I sure do wish this phone cost $4 because I spent my whole life savings on flipping Dogecoin. Freaking Dogecoin has more value than the Philippine peso now. What the heck? Well, in today's episode of Tech Talk, I'm going to tell you how having a $4 Android phone might not exactly be a great idea. This is the story of the Freedom 251, a phone I can only describe as getting what you paid for. So the year was 2016. US President Barack Obama and Philippine President Noynoy Aquino were just about to end their terms by the end of the year. Vine was still a thing, but was lagging behind on competitors Musically and Dub Smash, the latter of which was responsible for the Calle Seria phenomenon that swept my country up the previous year. And smartphones not only had headphone jacks, or as one of my friends on Discord calls it, a mic outlet, but they also had physical home buttons. Man, I miss those. Everyone's going mad about companies getting rid of the headphone jack, and yet no one misses the physical home button. Sad. Now, our story begins in India, which at the time had a pretty large Android install base with a 70% market share. And a big driving factor to that market share were affordable mid-range phones. Now, this was before Oppo, Vivo, and Realme became juggernauts in the mid-range market. Heck, Vivo was just starting out, releasing their third phone around this time, and Oppo was gaining a significant following for releasing good phones with good specs and with a good price. In fact, their reputation for putting great cameras in their phones started right around this time. Realme? Well, Realme wasn't even considered as a thought yet. So the kings of the mid-range smartphone market back in 2016 went to the three biggest smartphone brands: Spice, Carbon, and Micromax. We'll focus on Micromax for now, since I do remember some of their phones getting rebranded as Cherry mobile phones here in the Philippines. OEMs are fun! Back in 2016, Micromax's product line was pretty diverse. Apart from selling Android phones and tablets of various designs and functionalities, they were also selling laptops, TVs, and monitors. That's kinda nifty. Part of Micromax's product line is a series of basic smartphones called the Bolt. As expected, they are really basic. 3.5-inch screens, dual-core processors, half gigs of RAM, cameras listed at 5 megapixels, Android KitKat! Oof, remember when preloaded apps took up half of your storage space and all of them were useless? Now these were the kinds of phones that you would probably give to a kid if they were extremely persistent on getting a phone for their 10th birthday, or if you wanted to move up from your old dingus Nokia feature phone. Either way, these Bolt phones sold well, and that's primarily due to their price. With the cheapest one, the Bolt A066, starting from 1,099 rupees, or roughly 15 bucks. Now 15 bucks is a total steal, especially for a basic smartphone. But one businessman in Noida, Uttar Pradesh, India said, no, 1,099 rupees is far too much for such a commodity as a smartphone. Starting from today, I shall embark on a quest to build a smartphone that all Indians can enjoy for no less than 300 rupees. And that's exactly what Ringing Bell's private limited managing director Mohit Goel did. He and his company made a basic smartphone and plans to retail it for 251 rupees. 4 whole dollars. I can buy a Big Mac for less than that. And so the 251 rupee phone was launched on February 17, 2016 as the Ringing Bell's Freedom 251, a name even Americans can be proud of. It looks like an iPhone. Yeah, the design is an immediate red flag here, especially when you consider that Apple is very touchy when it comes to people copying their designs. Remember when they sued Samsung over TouchWiz? But who cares? It's a $4 phone and it's heckin' packing. 4-inch screen, a gig of RAM, 8 gigs of storage, Android lollipop, and it's only 251 rupees? Take my money. Take it. Take it! Take it! However, when you go to the website on the day of the release, you'll find a totally different phone. That might be another red flag, but they did change it the following day when pre-orders started to open up, so that might have been just a placeholder. And speaking of pre-orders, news spread of the 251 rupee phone so quickly that when pre-orders started to open up, the website crashed. Ringing Bells have gotten themselves a hit.
phone should not be the same price as a cup of coffee, but one new smartphone maker in India is getting lots of attention this week for introducing an Android phone that only costs about $4.
Ringing Bells initially wanted to sell 5 million of these things, and by the time the Freedom 251's website had gone back up, Ringing Bells had accumulated over 17 million rupees worth of pre-orders. That's pretty big. Shipping of the phone to the customers was scheduled in June. However, just as the phone had launched, people started becoming skeptical.
If a $4 smartphone sounds too good to be true, guess what? It is.
There are way too many unanswered questions this phone has. One in particular is how are they able to make a phone and sell it for so cheap? Now you can sell a phone for this kind of price. For example, this TCL prepaid smartphone from US carrier TracFone that sells for $1 more than the Freedom 251. There are quite a few caveats though. For one, the phone is reconditioned, meaning that the phone has been sold and used by someone else at one point, but returned to the carrier in exchange for a better device, and then cleaned up and resold by the carrier for a lower price. And also, it's not entirely $5. When you get the phone, you also need to get a prepaid plan to go along with it. Depending on the plan, you're actually going to spend at least $20 for that little TCL, thus reimbursing the total cost of the phone so that TracFone doesn't make a complete loss with their sale. The Freedom 251 on the other hand is a branded device with branded components and it's being sold for $4 upfront. Something doesn't add up. Now I'm no economics whiz, but there is quite a price on building an Android smartphone. Every component of the phone, from the screen to the processor to the body, has a price. The only exception is the OS itself, since it's open source, although you do need a fee to use Google services because copyright or whatever. A phone with this kind of specification seems impossible to be sold at $4 without some kind of reimbursement like on a TracFone device. The Indian Cellular Association thought the same way and asked the Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Ravi Shankar Prasad, to intervene. I probably butchered that, I'm so sorry. Talking to NDTV, he said that a complaint was filed against Ringing Bells by the Ministry of Finance over violations of the Foreign Exchange Management Act, which is essentially an Indian foreign exchange law. But that's not the only red flag the Freedom 251 is waving. Remember when I said that the phone looked like an iPhone? Well, some reviewers had taken a closer look at the device and saw that there was something covering the upper part of the bezel, just underneath the speaker grill. The covering was easily removable through scratching, kind of like if someone applied correction fluid onto it. And when they got rid of the covering, well, let's just say, who the heck is AdCom? So it turns out that the Freedom 251 was not only a knockoff iPhone, it was a stolen knockoff iPhone. The real device is actually called the AdCom Icon 4, a device that had already been in the market for quite some time. And guess how much that is priced? Bruh. But that's not all. After getting a review unit, it's also Sketchballs. Yeah, NDTV and a few others made a first look video on it, but what about every other tech reviewer in the country? Writing for The Verge, Advait Patel writes, from the start something about the Freedom 251 didn't seem right. Though the expected delivery date is set at June 2016, it was almost impossible to obtain a review unit after the big reveal. I reached out to Ringing Bell's media relations team to get one, and I was repeatedly stonewalled. Entrepreneur India's Rustam Singh also echoes this problem, stating, I dug up multiple emails and numbers of the company, both through official publicly visible records, as well as the information they registered at the office, as well as URL to. Every possible form of contact is either not working, unavailable, or perpetually busy. Media personnel visited the office on launch day expecting some response, but were greeted with a deserted office. The office guard was busy fending off the hype of a crowd and provided no answers to how many people employees are inside usually. Wouldn't publicity be something every company desires? Ringing Bells were not only in hot water, they were being drenched in freaking lava. They tried to save themselves from all this by claiming that what they saw was just a prototype and parts were sourced from AdCom, which would also explain why a review unit was so hard to come by. Evidently, it did not work. People then started calling the Freedom 251 a Ponzi scheme and a scam, and demanded Ringing Bells to give them their money back. Thankfully, they did refund those who wanted it, but they still promised that the phone was coming. Not only that, but government officials also raided Ringing Bell's office for not having a Bureau of Indian Standards certification, basically India's version of the NTC certification if you're Filipino, and they had to vacate their HQ because of all this controversy. But Ringing Bells was not giving up. They wanted to show the world that a brand new $4 smartphone is possible. And so they toiled hard and gave people what they wanted. It was a month late and wildly different from what it originally looked, but hey, it was there. Now what did people think of the phone? Well, CNET thought it was pretty alright, but Digit.in told you to skip this dang thing.
Despite the fact that this smartphone is functional, we really can't recommend it as your first Android experience.
Still too many red flags, this time not because if the phone even exists or not. I mean, it's right there, it's clear that it's real, but this time the red flags are for if the specifications of the phone were even correct. The battery, storage, and camera were listed as 1450 mAh, 8GB, and 3.2 megapixels respectively. When Digit.in tried it out, it turns out that the phone only had a 1000 mAh battery, a 2 megapixel camera, and 4 gigs of storage. The phone fills up after a couple of apps and dies within 3 hours. Even discharges when the phone is off. Pictures? Yeah, you're not holding an Oppo, buddy. Also, Digit.in describes the screen as being seen on a lot of budget phones from 5 years ago. The only other good thing this phone has it going for is its dual SIM capability and the fact that it's apparently made in India, which is good for the economy, but it's something that I highly doubt since the phone was revealed, revised, and released in a span of 5 months. How do you get a production plan running in 5 months? So the phone was finally released to the Indian public with lukewarm reception. Whoopie-doo! What's next for Ringing Bells then? Well, apparently the bottom of the hill. Ringing Bells did release another phone called the Smart Water 1 that's a little bit more powerful than the Freedom 251 and is priced a little bit more sensibly, but it's overshadowed by the controversy brought up by its smaller, cheaper brother. Ringing Bells also released a bunch of other stuff after the Freedom 251, namely 2 smartphones called the Elegant and Elegance. They're 2 completely different phones, trust me. And also a bunch of feature phones called the Hit, King, Boss, and Raha. They also released TVs. After that, they just kind of faded into obscurity since they'd never released anything else since then. Mohit Gahel got the short end of the stick, however. He was arrested a year later after allegations of fraud and sending out death threats. Yikes! He got out scot-free sometime after, but he was arrested again in 2018 for extortion, and again last January for scamming drive-through traders. And so, much like the Bee Gees song, as the hype surrounding the Freedom 251 dies out, the world continues to keep on living. Obama and Aquino would step down as planned, and in their places would be Donald Trump and Rodrigo Duterte, both of which would have a polarizing effect over the country they look after during their rule. Trump would step down 4 years later and Joe Biden would take over from there, however. And while finishing up this video, President Noynoy Aquino would die from renal disease secondary to diabetes. He was 61. Speaking of deaths, Vine died and Musical.ly became part of TechTalk, which would fill the shoes of both apps, for better or for worse, and Dubsmash was acquired by Reddit. No, really! And smartphones became better and better year after year, even though they got rid of the headphone jack and the physical home button. The mid-range smartphone market has become the most desirable market in recent history, and in India, a lot of brands are competing for that slice of proverbial pie. Micromax has got a product restructuring in response to the rise of Oppo, Vivo, Realme, and a bunch of other Chinese and Finnish brands. They got rid of their entry-level Bolt and mid-range canvas lines for one unified mid-range brand called ELPHNT, and they're all priced pretty sensibly. Adcom, the makers of the Icon 4, actually bowed out of the smartphone market entirely. They still make feature phones though, but now their primary focus is on headphones, monitors, and even gaming chairs. And since then, no one has ever made a $4 phone ever again. The end. And that's it for this episode of Tech Talk. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm pretty certain that I have a couple of bits and pieces incorrect, particularly within the information that I have on the video, and names, obviously. Very much likely names, so if you want to correct me, please do so in the comment section below. It helps engagement. And if you like this video, leave a thumbs up if you want to. I don't mind if you don't. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe. And I'll see you guys again next time. This has been Ronald Ryan, signing out.